was I pronouncing your name right last week? It's Bloomer. All right, very good. Okay, it is 7 p.m. and we will call this regular meeting of the Planning Commission, the September 14th, 2020 meeting, to order. First on our agenda is public remarks. So we will go ahead and open the floor to public remarks. A reminder that we are holding this meeting via Zoom per the governor's executive order. If you'd like to weigh in the public remarks sections, you will have 3 opportunities tonight. The first being right now, the second being during our public hearings in agenda item 6A, and the third option being at the end of the meeting. You will have 3 minutes, and you can show us that you are interested in speaking during public remarks by raising your hand using the raise hand feature in the Zoom call if you're joining us online. If you are watching from home, you can give us a phone call and join that way, and our staff will put you through to us. The phone number to call is 517-349-1232. And I will remind you that if you are speaking during public remarks, that we would ask that you give us your name and address at the beginning of your remarks for the public record. With that said, we will go ahead and open the floor for public remarks. Okay, I don't see any hands raised in the Zoom call. Stephen, anyone joining us on the phone?
We did have a caller, but she just hung up on me, I believe, when I told her she needed to turn down the volume to avoid feedback. Unfortunately, we disconnected. If she calls back, of course, we'll get her through right away, but there is no one else calling in at this time.
Okay, we'll give her just another moment as we're sort of living in an unusual world where you can't just raise your hand or show up. So we'll give her just another moment and then we'll move on.
And Chair Hendrickson, I'll thank you. I'll take the moment to thank you for your detailed description of how we're going to handle public comments. And I'll also take a quick moment to thank all of our people down in the home TV studios tonight who are allowing us to broadcast this over Comcast Channel 21 Home TV, and then also live stream on the internet at hometv.net. And I do not hear that call coming back in, so I will turn the meeting back over to you and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, it's a long overdue thank you to the folks who are making all this possible. With that said, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Bloomer. Any discussion on the agenda? Any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries and the agenda is approved. We'll move on to item number 4A, approval of the minutes. We have one set of minutes from our August 24th regular meeting. I would love to have a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Commissioner Primo. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner McConnell. Any comments, changes, amendments to our current set of minutes?
Under item 3, approval of agenda, I see a motion and a secondment. I don't see a vote. I'm sure that was unanimous approval.
I believe it was. Let me take a look here. It was approval of the agenda. Yeah, I think we did approve that unanimously last time around. It was 2 meetings ago that we moved things around. So Peter, can we get that updated to, or well, I guess we'd have to have that accepted as a friendly amendment to the motion here. Commissioner Primo. Okay. And then I see Commissioner Cordell's hand.
Yes, I'd like to just clarify one point. It's on page 3 on the bottom, Planning Commission discussion. We were talking about the MUPD. I just wanted to clarify that it says the promised amount of commercial space available to the public often doesn't happen. I guess want to say is a certain amount of commercial space is set aside in the program, but it's not always. At times, it's vacant. There might be issues with it being filled with a tenant. I think that was the intent of that discussion.
So that the space is provided, it's just not being used.
Yes.
Okay. Perhaps we can update that to better reflect the tenor of that conversation as well. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns on the minutes? I did notice something in our discussion for the Silverleaf PUD, which was that I believe we opened the motion and then we took a few amendment votes, and then I think it was moved again to consider the full proposal, and I wonder, Robert's rules-esque, if we needed to have that removed once we took some votes on a motion. I think we may not have needed
that caught my eye as well. I think that was just a repeat of the motion that's not necessary in the minutes.
Yeah, and that's partly just me needing to be more strict in terms of like, we don't actually need to make that motion again. So I'll try to keep an eye out for that. I do think it happened that way, but I'll just have to try and do a better job of making sure that if we've already made the motion, we don't have to make it again. So I'll keep an eye out for that, but I think the minutes are correct in terms of how that discussion actually went. Okay, Peter, yep.
I got the notes on the minutes. We'll make those changes. We kind of buzzed through, I know, public remarks. I think Commissioner Clark had a comment under public remarks. I just want to handle it now rather than make her wait through the meeting. Is that possible?
Okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take a moment of privilege for Commissioner Clark, former Commissioner Clark.
Former Commissioner, hello, Commission. I like changing things up, so I have accepted the position as a neighborhood and economic development director for the township. I will transition to this position beginning the 28th, so you will see me wearing a different hat. But I do like doing that. I like wearing different hats. My experience on this commission, as well as you know, is working for the city of Jackson, has opened up this opportunity for me. And so I plan on doing a really good job. So don't be too hard on me. And I want to just thank you very much for bringing me along, catching me up to speed, not using too many big words that I couldn't catch up with. And the terminology was pretty well received. So thank you very much for your time and your patience.
And thank you, Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. See you on the other side.
And as with I think Commissioner Lane, who also left, we owe you a trip to the bar and a round of beers at least when all this is said and done. So we appreciate your time serving, and we look forward to working with you in your new capacity.
Thank you.
With that said, I think we have a motion made for approval of the minutes. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the minutes are adopted. Communications, we have two communications. The first being Commissioner Clark's resignation, and the second from one of our concerned citizens on one of our PUDs that was on our agenda last time around. Next up is item 6A. Sorry, Peter, were there any late communications to us? All right, thank you. Item 6A, we have special use permit number 20061, Elizabeth and Jada, to expand an existing adult foster care home at 5340 Park Lake Road to accommodate up to 10 residents. And as we often do, we will turn things over to Principal Planner Menser for his presentation. Peter.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all again. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. Let me get to my presentation here. I do know the applicant is on call tonight, so I'll be able to fill in anything that I miss here.
And we do see your screen, Peter.
Thank you very much for that confirmation. Oops. All right. Okay. No, it doesn't want to work. Okay. Thank you for your patience with that. So tonight's a public hearing for a special use permit 20061. It's a request from Elizabeth Engeda to expand a foster care home at 5340 Park Lake Road. Everything I'm talking about tonight is on the township meeting packet, or it's in the township meeting packet on the township website. So you go to the homepage and you go to the meetings tab, you'll see staff report, the meeting packet and everything, all the application attachments and everything related. So the public hearing will go as follows. I'll provide a very brief summary. There will be a presentation from the applicant, then public comment just on this topic, and then planning commission discussion. They will very likely have questions for the applicant along the way. At the very end of our meeting tonight is general public comment for any topic. So the process, I think everybody's familiar with this. We do provide notice in accordance with state law to surrounding property owners. The public hearing is tonight. The planning commission is the final decision maker in this request. So most likely at their next meeting on September 28th, planning commission will likely render a decision on this request, depending on the discussion tonight. So the property that is of interest to us this evening is on the east side of Park Lake Road, between Grand River and Bertram. So you'll see it's just kind of in the middle of a residential neighborhood on Park Lake Road. 5340 Park Lake, less than a half-acre property, has 100 feet of frontage on Park Lake Road. It's developed with a 2,500 square foot house that was built in the late 50s. The request is to expand an existing adult foster care home to serve up to 10 residents. It currently serves 6 residents and they're licensed for 6, but they're requesting to add those 4 additional residents. So the license, it all goes through LARA, through the state, and it's an adult small group home. And the current capacity is 1 through 6. So in addition to the special use permit, they'll also need the license from LARA to serve up to 10. And my understanding, the applicant can fill you in on this further, so that they're in the process of doing that right now. Because there's inspections and stuff related to that. So if we don't see evidence of that before the end of this process, we'll put that as a condition of approval. I'll buzz through this. A lot of it's not very relevant. The master plan calls for residential 0.5 to 3.5. It's zoned RA. Non-residential uses in residential districts are allowed in RA, subject to special use permit approval from the planning commission. Not allowed streets and traffic. The plan is to use the existing driveway for parking. The spaces and garage are also available. There's limited use of vehicles by residents of the house. There are staff that, and then some outside visitors, as we noted in the staff memo, whether it's doctors or caretakers or family visitors that will access the property from time to time. So in this case, a traffic assessment or study was not required. Special use permit criteria. So what is the planning commission using to make a judgment on this request? The typical special use permit review criteria is 1 through 9 on the SUP application. And it's also found in section 86-126 of our township zoning ordinance. as well as the applicant responses to that criteria that's noted in their special use permit application, but also the standards for non-residential uses in residential zoning districts. Those can be found, staff made an attempt here starting on page 5 of your staff memo, just to provide some very brief responses. Some of those are based on location and where the property faces, motor vehicle entrance, extension utilities, lot size. Nothing really stuck out to us as being completely incongruent with the request. Also, you'll consider that they've been operating on the site for some time. So nothing came up, in our additional review, but you will be using that criteria as well. There's 10 items there in considering this request. Looks like I've got that in there twice, so. What's next? Further discussion on September 28th, depending on how the discussion goes tonight. I will either prepare a resolution for approval or denial ahead of that meeting. So as always, we're available for questions. I do know that the applicant is on the call and ready to take your questions. So let me stop my broadcast, get back to the meeting. I'm going to promote Elizabeth to our meeting. And you are on, Elizabeth. Be sure to turn your video on, well, you can use a photo if you'd like to, but also unmute yourself when you're ready to speak. So if you have anything to share with the Planning Commission, now is the time. Oh, hey, be sure to
don't forget to unmute Elizabeth.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be part of this meeting this evening, and I appreciate all your time. I'm Harut Mercia Scarlett, and sitting next to me is Elizabeth Ingada, and I'm the social worker, and I also assist Ms. Ingada with the administrative part of what she needs done. And I've also been assisting her with the application process. My background is adult and child welfare, and working with individuals, adults and children, and with disability. Anyway, we are, as you see on the application, you do have the information, the packet of information that you have. The existing property is currently housing 6 individuals, and has been in operation since 2015. Yeah, and 2013. Sorry.
2013. Sorry.
And the residents do not drive. They need assistance with transportation where they need to go. They're mainly independent, but they need assistance with some of their ADLs, and they have been good citizens living in that neighborhood. And community mental health, we work with them and other agencies, and they're screened out. And personally, Elsa, as a nurse, she makes sure that before the residents come into the home, they'll we want to make sure that they're they fit with the residents there, as well as with the home that we provide. The home has 5 bedrooms, and it has 4 full baths, and the bedrooms are really large, and would accommodate to a bedroom, twin size bed, and it's as indicated, it's got 2,558 square footage, and that's all I have for now. And if you have any questions, Elizabeth had to step out, but I would be glad to address them.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move into the public comment section.
Okay, there's one correction. It has 6 bedrooms. That's what I was told.
Oh, thank you. All right, very good. We'll move into public comments at this time. A reminder, the public is welcome to join us
Any
and speak.
questions? I know
Sorry,
it's a lot
can
of package that you have there.
Can you hear me? Hello?
We're hearing you, sir.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move into the public comment section of the meeting. Reminder that if you'd like to speak for public comment, you can do so at this time. You will be required to keep your public comments to this topic. If you'd like to do so, you can raise your hand in the Zoom meeting or give us a phone call at 517-349-1232.
I can't hear. We can't hear him.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, maybe you could explain to
hear the
the
question.
applicant that this is, explain to the applicant that this is a time where the general public is
Yes.
going to have an opportunity, and we really don't hear from the applicant. The applicant's going to have an opportunity to respond.
Okay.
Yeah,
At
if
a
I
later
could
time.
piggyback on that, Elspeth, I did drop you down to an attendee, so we'll come back to you after the planning commission has had a chance to discuss your request and after the public comments have been made. And if they have a specific question for you, we'll add you back. But please stay on the meeting in the meantime.
Thank you, Peter. All right. I think I got 8 digits through the phone number, so it's 517-349-1232. Feel free to give us a call and staff will help to put you through to us. So at this time, I see a couple of hands raised. We'll have Peter go ahead and get you involved. And I'll remind you that when you do join us to speak, to please give your name and address at the beginning of your remarks for the public record.
Yeah, let me just pull up the folks here. So the first request is from Patrick and Alana Miller. So we're going to allow those folks to talk, and you're on with our planning commission. Please be sure to unmute yourself and give your name and address.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Patrick Miller, along with my wife, Elena Miller. We live right next door, just south, adjacent to the foster care home, and we've lived here for 25 years. So we've been here all during the duration of the adult foster care as it is presently used. And our response is that they have been very good neighbors. There's never been any conflict or concern about the health, safety, or welfare of ourselves or with any of the residents at the adult foster care home. Elizabeth and her staff are very engaged and conscientious and caring for the needs of the residents, and they are very quick to respond in times of emergency with emergency health care. So we can see no reason why this same routine would not be a safe bet for the future, and we are all in approval for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Turn it up.
Peter, we do have a caller on the line. If we can put them through.
Okay, let's go ahead and put them through. Stephen, thank you. Hi there, you're on with the Planning Commission. Can you hear us?
It's Brian and MJ McNitt, and we live at 5380 Park Lake Road.
Go ahead.
Thank you, go ahead.
We are not in favor of this. There's 6 people there now. We really do not think it should go up to 10. This is a residential neighborhood. There are quite a few ambulances at this location or Dean Transportation. You know, on garbage day, there's quite a bit of garbage at the end of the driveway. We just really think it should be left at 6. This affects our property value.
Okay.
We just think that this is a residential neighborhood. It's meant for one family residence, and we just don't want this whole neighborhood turned into a group home
You know, this street is busy enough with Costco at the end of the street. We really don't want to add this to it. You know, 6 is enough. There's 6 bedrooms. You know, the house is not that big. We really feel that there should be left at 6.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in. All right, I see one more hand, Peter.
Yep, let me grab Ricardo here. Okay, Ricardo Enrique Lorenz, you are on with the Planning Commission. Please be sure to unmute yourself.
I can't see myself, but you can hear me probably.
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, I live in 5332 Park Lake. And I know the Millers very well, who are my neighbors at the north. The only question I have is for the well-being of those 10 people in there. How many bathrooms does that house have? And you know, my father had to be in a foster home, and I know how busy it can get and how complicated. And if you're going from 6 to 10, that's almost 50% increase. And I just wonder, how many bathrooms does that house have to have 10 people in?
Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So 3.
Ricardo. Any other members of the public wishing to speak at this time? Anyone on the phones?
No, sir, no calls at this.
All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment at this time and move on to Planning Commission discussion. We'll open the floor to Planning Commissioners who'd like to weigh in on this, and we'll go to Commissioner Bloomer. Don't forget to unmute. Can't hear you, Mark, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any problem with the concept of expanding. It's still within the state limits. My question is very similar to the last public comment, and that is, physically, will this house properly accommodate 10 adults? 2,500 square feet doesn't seem like a lot to house 10 adults. And my question is, do they anticipate a physical expansion of the facility, or can they really accommodate properly 10 special needs adults in the existing facility?
That sounds like it might be a question for the applicant. So if we could perhaps promote them back, Peter, that might be helpful.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, we're going to add you back in. Please just limit your comments to just responses to the Planning Commission when they ask you questions. So Elizabeth, they had a question about the size of the house and number of bathrooms and any proposed expansion to the footprint.
And you will have to unmute again. Yep, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Per Lara, State of Michigan, adult foster care, it's approved. Single bedroom has to be 80 square feet, and then double bedroom, it has to be 130 square feet. The house, it has 6 bedrooms and 4 full bathrooms. And per State of Michigan policy and procedure, I have enough space.
Okay. I think that Commissioner Bloomer had also asked, are you planning any expansion at this time?
I don't think you heard me. Did you hear me?
Yeah, we did. I worry that they're not able to hear us, Peter. Not that we can do anything about it.
Yeah, I can't really do anything about that. Elizabeth, can you hear the question from our chair about the number of bathrooms and the spacing?
It's unmuted, yeah.
This is the future.
It's going to be so much easier when we can be back in person again.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Elsa.
Okay, did you hear me or do you want me to repeat my answer?
We heard you, yes. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Wonderful. I was following up on a question that Commissioner Bloomer had asked about if you were planning any expansion at any point in the near future.
Yeah, not at this time.
Okay.
Because it has 6 bedrooms. 3 of them it's going to double, and then 3 of them it's going to single. Actually, 2 of them it's going to single. So I don't have any plan to extend anything.
Thank you. Commissioner Bloomer, any further questions?
Just the current size of the dwelling is, are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay. The current size of the dwelling is within state guidelines for this type of facility for 10 people?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Commissioner Cordell, then Commissioner Richards.
I did have a follow-up question about, I understand that it meets this, the space requirements. There are 4 bathrooms. Do these individuals, I mean, some are physically disabled, do some need help, and do some need assistance using the bathroom?
Yes, they do.
I'm just wondering with 10 people if that could become an issue.
I have 4 full bathrooms. 2 of the bathrooms is handicapped access. The other 2 bedroom is upstairs, who they can climb the stairs. That's what we use.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then status at this time I have enough space, more than 6 people, and then there is a lot of need. So just I'm thinking that way.
Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner Richards?
Yeah, I guess I have 2 questions. One for the applicant. One, the maximum is 10. Will you plan on always having 10, or is that, will it be times it will be less than 10 there? Or is your plan to have 10 there all the time?
Anything you guys what to approve for me, I'll take.
Okay.
Any number, but
And then the second question I have, and this is probably more along the state regulations, but for general information, you have your literature said you have 2 individuals working at any given time now with the 6. Does it still stay at 2 when you have 10, or does that change?
it depends what kind of client I have. Most of the time, if my clients are more dependent, I'll increase. But most of the time, if they require more than 2, I wouldn't accept that client because requires a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Other commissioners with discussion points, questions or comments? Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, I have one question for the applicant and maybe another question for staff. The first question kind of derives from the discussion recently over the ANDEV senior living application at the end of Hannah Boulevard. And it's really a curiosity about how this facility has experienced COVID-19 and how an expansion, how an increase in capacity fits with the restrictions that we know that families have in visiting their family members who are in assisted living or foster care. And it's more a curiosity than requirement. And the question for staff is about the parking. And I saw a requirement for 5 and a fulfillment of 7, but I heard some public comment that there's concern about some of the traffic implications. And I tried to look at the area earlier on Google Maps, and I can't see a parking restriction on Park Lake Road. I know there is a sort of a bicycle facility there, but it doesn't seem like people often park on Park Lake Road. And I'm just sort of wondering, is there a restriction on parking on Park Lake, or is it just that because of the road conditions, people don't tend to do that? So these are both curiosity questions. Thanks.
For COVID-19, starting March 13th, 2020, no visitors. And it's this state requirement. And then for family, I have a laptop and we can do virtual visit. For primary care physicians, for psychiatrists, we do virtual visit. And then for podiatrists, I have a form. It is a screening form. They fill out that screening form. I check the temperature. I'm a critical care nurse, and I do all the assessments, and then they can come and then do the pediatric work. For blood work and other stuffs, Sparrow Labs, they will come and draw. Still, we do screening. I have huge parking, 5 cars, and then they don't have to go out, back up. They can go back. I have the round 2 entrance. So I am on my side, I don't see any problems. At the meantime, I like to inform you, we don't have any that ambulance coming in my house. What it is there is a dialysis person who lives in that place. She has 3 days a week dialysis, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And then the Ambicap, they will come and they pick her up and then bring her back. The reason why we don't have ambulance coming, I do early assessment. If we see a sign of sickness, we monitor, and then if they have to go, we send them early before 911 calls. And that is it's not the issue, and then that's the one I do really care about my residents. And then for parking, and then for the road, no, I don't see anybody to park on the street because it's very busy road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was, thank you. I think that was a question for staff, but thank you for that response.
Yeah.
Peter, can you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I was just looking at the maps. I'm not familiar that there's ever been any on-street parking on Park Lake Road. I don't see it anywhere on the air photo. I've never come across it in driving down the street. So there's a pathway on the west side of most at Park Lake Road in this area, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would be at your peril to park on that road if you did.
One way.
I think
There's only one way to go down to Bercham. It's one single file, and then to go to Grand River, it's just one single file. There is no way to park anywhere.
Thank you very much, Elsabeth. I see Commissioner Cordell.
Yeah, I had a question probably for staff. The first one is parking. Having visited the site, there is a semicircular drive in front of the house. It is rather narrow. I was just challenged to figure out where the 5 parking spaces would be in order to get circulation and not having to back up. I mean, some of the property owners probably do end up, or visitors, backing up onto Park Lake, which can be challenging certain times of the day, but has that been figured out where those parking spaces would be? It does seem rather limited.
I'm going to defer to the applicant on that question to describe the parking situation in your driveway.
The driveway is configured with, by the way, I'm Abraham, I'm her husband. I don't work there, but I assist in some technical matters. The driveway is a U driveway, as the previous speaker said. It is narrow on one side, but quite ample on the main entrance. There are three spots where cars could come and park, and then there is in the U-turn. It holds two cars. It can hold two cars there, and then also straight in the driveway there is. Usually we just park one car, but there is space for parking, and I think parking and mobility for 5 cars is no problem. We haven't experienced any. Only cases when the big buses come, the big buses anyway, they just come in and stay very close to the street, and they back out when they go out, and they have their beep beeping. So when they go out, that's what they do everywhere.
Thank you very much. Did that answer your question, Holly?
Well, I still see it as being a tight situation for 5 cars. I think they seem to.
What would you say is
Abraham? Please wait until you're called upon, please.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Cordell.
I just, having visited the site, I'm just trying to figure how that would possibly work. I understand some parking could be in the garage, but then you could have cars blocking the drive for them to back out. Was there any sort of diagram figured out for the expansion of clients for parking?
The client?
May I speak, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll repeat this once again. There is one rectangular space which can hold 2 to 3 cars. And then there is one large entrance space where these 3 cars can back out. And that main entrance long way, that is used for moving in and out. On the side, there are a space where it parks 2 to 3 cars, the rectangular space. So there is this one space that comes into the building. It is, I would say, it is 8 to 10 yards. And then there is the entrance on the other side, which can hold 2 cars. And then the front car in the other entrance can just drive out. And then the car behind can just back out. So for 4 cars, there is parking with free in and outs. And there is this one long way, which is used for back out, and then for the buses and for quick in and outs. I don't know how. I'm an engineer, and I think for 5 cars we have ample space.
Thank you,
May
Commissioner Cordell.
I would just like, as a follow-up before the next meeting, that I'm looking at the plat or the layout, the lot survey, indicating where these parking spots would be located. I think that would be very helpful, because I'm sorry, I'm just not getting it. It's not clear to me with the verbal description when I'm looking at the lot survey. So I would ask that the parking be indicated on the lot survey.
that something that, Peter, you'd be able to work with the applicant to put together?
Yes.
Thank you. And just as a point of information, is it possible for us, I mean, we can offer conditions on this type of application, right?
Absolutely.
So we could condition this upon, you know, proper delineation and number of parking spaces as required per ordinance.
What does that mean?
I just mean like they should probably be striped. They should probably be the correct size, and they should be the correct number based on what our ordinance requires.
Yeah, so our ordinance requires 5, and in terms of striping them, I mean, this isn't a, first of all, yes, we can do whatever you want, so I don't want to come off as a negative on that, but the challenge I think is going to be how do we lay them out? We don't really have, this isn't a commercial parking lot, it's a driveway. So do you just want to see a diagram that shows cars in a driveway?
Well, I just want to make sure that we actually can fit 5 cars in that driveway. That was my concern. And I think I shared the concern that Commissioner Cordell was expressing. I was just trying to explore what our options are if we wanted to make sure that we had the ability to sort of enforce that.
So a diagram showing that 5 cars will fit on the lot would do it?
Without the site circulation being impacted. So you can still get in and out without the parking spots. I'm just not seeing it. Maybe with a diagram that would help me with the lot survey or whatever means.
Okay, yeah, I think one of the challenges that we should consider in this, and now the reason this has never come to the Planning Commission for a special use permit is for 6 and under is we're obligated by the state to treat them as to treat these types of facilities as a single family use. So I just think in crafting conditions, I think showing the parking is fine, but requiring anything beyond that in terms of a spacing, we have to consider that this is just my opinion, any residential house could potentially have, 6 kids and 6 cars. So I think we need to consider that when what we require of this use versus what we require of a single family house.
But with 10 people, with 10 clients living in that's a little different than where it is now, I believe. All due respect.
May I speak?
Not yet, please. I saw Commissioner McConnell's hand.
Yeah, I think I want to underline a little bit Commissioner Cordell's comments. I see condition 9, off-street parking spaces shall be provided as required by the zoning ordinance. And in the response in the staff memo, the applicant has indicated that 7 parking spaces are provided. What I'm hearing Commissioner Cordell ask for is some assurance that staff agrees with that assessment on the part of the applicant. And I don't know what that looks like, but it seems reasonable since it is a road that seems to have, if not restricted, then at least unusual or infrequent parking. So some reassurance that we're not going to end up with cars blocking traffic or bike lanes or whatever it is seems reasonable. I'm just not sure how to accomplish that.
Commissioner Primo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My understanding is that for every 2 residents, you have to have, the state requires 1 parking space. If I'm doing the math, that means they need 5. So whether they have 7 is not an issue. They can claim they have 7, but 5 is what they need. And the issue is, do they have the space to accommodate 5?
Right.
Yeah, my plan to tackle this is to have them put together a diagram showing that it'll fit the 5 cars on the site.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I think looking at the diagram here, this is a somewhat unique situation, and they have really 2 accesses to the property. And so, it's one situation where you've got 1 driveway and you're trying to come in and out, and I think they explain that. there's really a way in and a way out. And then the other thing is that, you know, I haven't really seen it, but if in terms of moving the traffic around so they can make the U, can they park partially on the grass and partially on the pavement so that it leaves enough room for the those that might be parked on that more narrower in the entrance, which I'm assuming is looking at the diagram would be the right side of the property. So I think we've got a unique situation here, at least in my view. I'm not as concerned as it appears some of the members are in terms of parking, because I think that it can be laid out on that property, particularly if it's 5.
Thank you, Commissioner Richards. Any other comments from Planning Commission members? Okay, Commissioner Cordell?
Yeah, just I did have another question. I am looking at the special use permit criteria. Number 4, site locations are preferred that offer natural or man-made barriers that would lessen the effect of intrusion into residential areas. Honestly, it's difficult to tell from the street what that property is like in the side yards and the rear yard. Peter, can you please address that?
You want me to address how the property is laid out?
If there are natural or man-made barriers that would lessen the effect of intrusion into the residential areas.
Well, I think this is definitely a situation where a site visit would probably answer some of these questions. I would defer to the applicant to describe the property, or maybe to get on Google Street View might provide part of the answer.
Yeah, I did visit it. It was difficult to see, and no, I did not.
Well, let's see what the applicant has to say.
I think this might be a good opportunity for the applicant to weigh in on what barriers exist on the property line to help meet that condition. Elizabeth?
Yes, I didn't get the question. Really,
Sorry, the question was one of the criteria that we use to determine for this type of special use permit is that the site location offers a natural or man-made barrier that will lessen the intrusion into neighboring residential areas. So the question, I think, was, can you describe any natural or man-made barriers that would meet that criteria?
Did you get that one, the question?
This is Harut. If you're asking, the property has like natural, like the backyard has wood. It's a wooded area in the back, and I also would like to invite Commissioner Cordell to come over and look at it. You're more than welcome. There are trees surrounding it. There's arborvitae around the front part of the house. And it's, you can't see the house that much from the, from the front, because there's trees over there, there's the barriers over there. So, and it's just a beautiful natural setting, especially in the back. You don't even feel like you're in an environment that is crowded or anything. It has like a patio, and a little house that playhouse where the patients go in and kind of take a little quiet moment.
Swing.
And there's also a swing back there. So we welcome you, Commissioner Cordell, to come over, maybe arrange it with Elizabeth, and she will be there to walk you around.
And the other thing, my residents, they don't drive. Unfortunately, any of them, they don't drive. They don't have car, and they may not able to drive with their related to their disease process. Maximum car, we may have 3 in a given time. Otherwise, there is no car. Pharmacies, they will bring medication, drop and go. I'll go work my duty and go. The live-in employee, she doesn't have a car. When she wants to go, Uber or public transportation. And the other staff, she has a car, and the maximum of the car we may have in the parking lot, 2, if not 3. That's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Richards.
I have a question for the applicant regarding how much of your outside, and I'm assuming it's your backyard, is used. Do the residents use the outdoors much, or do they primarily stay inside?
When the weather is permit, we do use it. Some of them, they may not able to, walk around because of the physical condition. The people who they can, they do. They go sit on the porch, or I have a little couple of chairs. They will sit on the front. There is a little area, they sit there. So a couple of them, because of the use walker, they sit on the porch. So they know, but they walk. They walk down a roundabout, and then like Bercham, and then they go walk to Grand River, and then they come home. Very peaceful, nice, sweet people.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Richards?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I had a couple of questions on the specific standards section that Peter provided. So I guess my first one is sort of a general question, which is how strictly so we seek to find answers that meet our satisfaction for this special use permit criteria. Was that a similar standard that is generally accepted with these standards that are specific to this type of project or proposal? Sorry if that was an obtuse question. I guess what I'm looking for is so number 1, for example, says that a preferable location is at the edge of a residential district. This most decidedly is not at the edge of a residential district, right? There's residential areas all around it. It's in the smack in the middle of it. And obviously they've been operating already, but if this is like a strict criteria that we must meet, then number 1, I question why it was approved in the first place. And number 2, if we're going to expand it, I am concerned that that doesn't meet that criteria.
Sure. I'll answer in 2 parts. One, I don't think it's a checkbox situation where you have to check all of these criteria to make it work. I think it's part of the decision process, and that's definitely not saying it's easy. Is your comfort level with the project and how it fits into this criteria. The second part is there was no approval the first time. 6 units or less for adult foster care facilities are by right, and they have to be treated like a residence. So there is no special use permit approval. They're simply granted. They don't need to seek planning commission approval. They just can open with proper licensing from the state.
Got it. Thank you. My second question is for the applicant, and it is related to the approval of Laura for the additional residents. Peter mentioned in his original staff presentation at the beginning of this that you may still be seeking that. Can you confirm that you are still seeking approval for the additional residents from the state of Michigan, or have you already received that?
Yes, I'm still seeking. I have to have approval from zoning first.
I see.
And then whatever number you approved me, and then they will approve.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leads me to a follow-up then for staff, which is, are we able to condition it on state of Michigan approval if theirs is conditioned on ours?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the way it's going to have to go here.
Okay, got it. Okay, then my second is, or my third question, I guess, is a definitions question. Can you help me to understand what the intent of the ordinance was when it says major street? And, you know, because, you know, we're designating this in minor arterial street. I know that there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that. It feels like a major street to me. You know, generally, can you tell me sort of the order of operations for, you know, lesser to more in terms of street designations? Like what?
Well,
So I guess,
goes
you know,
with-
how many come before it and how many come after in terms of traffic flow?
Are you talking categorically? So,
Yes.
okay. So we have the principal or primary streets, we have the arterial, and then we have the collector. So those are the three that are identified in our zoning district or our zoning ordinance in terms of classifications. I'm sure transportation agencies have fully different categories for these, and I won't pretend to know those. In terms of your question related to Major Street, I would definitely call Park Lake Road a major street. I don't know if we have in our ordinance the qualifications for that as you described previously, but I certainly would consider Park Lake Road a major street.
Yeah.
And that was the intent, was to have it off of some major primary street.
Yeah.
Like Park Lake.
There's two different terminologies we were using. I wanted to clarify there. Okay. So I saw, as I was talking, Commissioner McConnell and Commissioner Richards. So we'll go McConnell then Richards, please.
I was also curious about that minor arterial nomenclature and would like to hear more about that.
I don't know if I have any backstory really for it, other than the zoning ordinance identifies those three types. There, maybe I can look before our next meeting and try to provide some more information. And Director Kieselbach is here. He's been around for a little while. He might know.
Yeah, those classification, again, they're part of the zoning ordinance, and the major reason was defining setbacks for structures from those roads. Again, they figured, you know, those roads that have more traffic on them, then the setback should be a larger distance for houses or commercial buildings. Again, it doesn't coincide with like what the road department or the state would classify roads. In fact, the road department only has two classifications. If it's not a local, it's a primary. So, and there's a, you know, it's different than what we're using it for. I think this all started for setbacks.
Thank you, Director Kieselbach. Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, one thing that makes this a little bit different than most is that in a number of cases with special use permits, we're kind of thinking about, well, it isn't what they're asking for now, but what's it going to be like in the future? I think in this particular case, they're already functioning. It's a matter of, you know, increasing that use, but I think, at least in my view, it's a relatively low impact use in terms of the impact in the neighborhood. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have to, you know, we have some history. In fact, we have a history of a neighbor who's been next door to it for the whole time it's been running. So it's, to me, a whole lot different than a proposal for an SUP where it hasn't, you know, the property's never been used for that particular purpose. So I think that that to me says, you know, at least gives us more to go on than we would otherwise.
Commissioner Bloomer.
I'd like to follow on to that. I agree with the commissioner. If I've driven past that place probably 2 or 3 times a week for the entire length of its existence, and I didn't know it was a group home. It appears to be very low impact on the neighborhood. If you look at it from the street view on Google Maps, which I was doing a few minutes ago, you can't tell that it's anything other than a standard residential home. I believe that what they're asking for is of minimal change to the impact on the local community, which is really what we're talking about here. Which is why I asked in the first place if they're contemplating changing the footprint of that building. Because if they're not, it simply fits right in with the neighborhood already.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Commissioner McConnell.
Last thing, sorry to string this out. There was a public comment about trash collection, and I just wanted to give the applicant an opportunity to respond to that.
Okay, applicant.
These days, when was that? We cleaned up a lot of stuffs, and then I got new furnitures. And we put trash to picked up by Granger, and then it was holiday, and then stayed on the road side a couple of days. That might be the cause. Besides that, we never ever have trash on the road, or if you come to my house, there is nothing. I have residents who they use their incontinent. My house, it doesn't smell. I taking care of mentally and physically disabled people. Never. But this was a holiday, the Labor Day, and then it was a lot of stuffs in there. Besides that, no.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Shrewsbury.
I just wanted to echo what Commissioner Bloomer said, that it feels as if this is really just a minor expansion of sort of something that's already been there in existence for a while and seems to be minimally intrusive in the neighborhood. It sounds like, you know, the explanation on the trash makes sense. And this is such an incredibly needed service for the community that I think that finding someone with a track record and allowing that to just expand slightly to increase capacity for what is an obvious need is an important thing for the community. So I'd be comfortable with this.
Thank you. Any other comments before we take a straw poll? Don't see any hands. All right, so we'll go ahead and do a straw poll on the Planning Commission's interest in moving forward and approving or denying this this special use permit request. For those who are joining us and those watching at home, maybe for the first time, the straw poll is not a vote on this matter. It is merely gaining a sense of the Planning Commission so that Peter can go back and prepare a resolution for the next time we meet. And that's when the actual vote will take place. So with that said, we will go ahead and go through, and a yes means approve and a no means deny. So we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner McConnell.
I generally support as long as we're comfortable with the parking and the trash.
Okay, Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
I generally also approve. They have a good track record. I would like to see how the parking would be laid out in the circulation.
Okay. Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
And the chair would be supportive. So I think, Peter, that gives you some adequate direction. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 8:08. All right, with that, we will move on to unfinished business. We have none. And then we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the other business, mixed use planned unit development ordinance review. So I got a note from Peter, I think in our communication about this meeting, that we got a little response to the call for items to be sent prior to this meeting. But if you're anything like me, Labor Day caught up with me and it was completely out of my head. So we have a few things to talk about, and we'll go over those. And otherwise, we'll see where we get and what we can do this evening. So Peter, can you sort of walk us through what was shared with you, please?
Sure. So far, I did have a telephone conversation with Commissioner Richards, and I do have an email here that I can try to just boil down for you from Commissioner Zeiss, who unfortunately was unable to be with us tonight. I'll let Commissioner Richards speak for himself, but I do want to at least, what I got from Commissioner Zeiss was related to requiring a minimum square footage for public usage. So he was saying, for example, 10% of the development with a cap on the minimum amount of square feet. I'm not sure what that means.
So
I think the general gist of his questions were how the use, and he can clarify at the next meeting, but how these areas, whether a area should be designated for use by the public or whether designated use for use by the residents counts as an amenity. So which, are they supposed to be public amenities or are they supposed to be amenities for the residents on site? He also recommended that we take a look at the different types of amenities and provide additional detail and some actual numbers. For example, like if we're saying renewable energy, we should require a specific percentage. So really clarify what the amounts are, provide something formal. And that's what I've got so far.
Okay. And then Commissioner Richards, you had some additional thoughts, perhaps you'd like to share.
Yeah,
those?
I guess I had both some big picture type things and some smaller, and I guess I probably, until we go over the smaller, but one thought I had on amenities, because having seen a number of these, more than once we've said, well, that's not anything more than what would normally be included in a typical development. So, one thing I guess I thought about is redoing the definition of amenity to really focus on features not normally included in the type of development that they're proposing. And then furthermore, to put the obligation on the applicant to show that what amenities they're offering are not typically included in those types of development. Because I think when we try to define what they are, it's very difficult to define, well, what's acceptable or not acceptable. And so again, thinking along, because I think the whole amenity section, at least in my mind, has to be rewritten and made simpler in some respects. But again, what I was thinking about is, again, that the idea that the features that they're saying are amenity are not normally included in those types of residential commercial developments. And then again, the onus being on the developer to show us why that's the case. Another thing, I guess, from a big picture standpoint, I really think that MUPUD should focus on redevelopment of existing properties as opposed to new developments on vacant land. So I think that we really have to look at the definition of what we're trying to accomplish and make sure that the projects are fitting that. So I would say that in my mind, I think we want to make it more restrictive, the MUPUD, than maybe what's typically been the case. And one of the reasons I guess I would opt for that is there's one of the sections talks about a concept plan, and the concept plan is optional. but I guess I would like us to consider making it required. So we see a concept plan before the big plan. And also that concept plan goes to the board, the township board. And then I guess one reason why I would suggest doing that is that in order to streamline the process, which is, I think one of the things we've always heard is that the process takes so long, is that the Planning Commission be the body that actually approves the MUPUD as opposed to going to the township board. So if we require a concept plan, that would go to the board, get their feedback on the project before it ever gets fully developed. And we would look at it as a planning commission, and we would have that input to get back to the proposer, the developer, and then the process would go through the planning commission, and the planning commission would be the approver of the project as opposed to the recommender of the project. So would be a big change from the way we do things now. So those are some of the things I looked at and said, you know, if we really want to make this a more viable but yet target particular to be more in tune with what I think some of us think mixed-use PUD should be, as opposed to a little bit of commercial and mostly residential in most cases. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McConnell and Commissioner Bloomer.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that a bit. I'm looking at the requirements and guidelines, and I'm reading a sentence that says amenities shall be viable and or accessible to the public from a fully improved street and or benefit to the general public. And I think we had a discussion last time about as we review an application, we might be convinced that these amenities are accessible to, but in the long run, we might conclude that they're mainly being utilized by residents of the development. And we're trying to work out how to regulate that. That feels to me like a kind of point of concentration.
Yeah. Commissioner Bloomer.
Last meeting was my first appearance with this group, and I admit total unfamiliarity with these types of ordinances. In order to familiarize myself with what I think was the issue here, and that was the specificity of the amenity clause, I tried looking around the country. I must have read a dozen ordinances from around the country, including Oak Park, Michigan, and Lansing. Virtually none of them define amenities. Everybody seems to think they know what it means, and they just throw the word into the statute and don't define it. Or if they do, it's even worse than we've got here.
I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah, there just are no good examples of what we're trying to accomplish here. But it appears to me that amenity has to be defined as something above and beyond the basic use of the project. Otherwise, it's not an amenity, it's part of the project. Mm-hmm. An amenity is by definition something that appears to benefit the humanity of the project, make it more comfortable, more physically accessible, generally more attractive in vague terms. And I think we're going to basically be starting from scratch because there really aren't no good examples that I was able to find anywhere that we could draw from. But as long as we agree on what the concept is, then I think it's going to fall into place for staff.
Yeah, I agree with what was just said. I think that it's also, we have been a little too vague with the how many requirement when it comes to amenities as well, because when reading this, it appears to me like any one of this list of 12 amenities, and this list of 12 includes a lot of very vague, very easy to achieve things that might otherwise be included anyway in a normal project that doesn't have PUD attached, would be fine. And I think that we can and we should expect a little bit better when it comes to these sorts of projects. And so, yeah, I think that we could get more specific. I think we could be a little bit more, we could require a bit more of the applicants as they're coming through with these proposals in terms of the amenities that they do provide. Commissioner Primo.
I think part of that amenity would have to do with being clear on who we expect amendment, being clear on who we expect amenities to benefit. For instance, if it's an apartment building, is the amenity is just for the people in the apartment building, or are we expecting amenities that benefit the general public?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear any of that.
Yeah, sorry, Commissioner Primo, your audio sort of turned a bit robotic on us, unfortunately.
Probably God's way of saying it wasn't that important.
I'm sure that's not the case. I'm curious as to the sense of the commission on the procedural proposal that Commissioner Richards made as well, about sort of changing the way the decisions are made with the MUPD, because we did highlight the process, the too long process being an area of concern that we've heard a lot from applicants. And I think it's an interesting notion. I guess, first of all, I just wanted to clarify from Commissioner Richards, what you're suggesting is concept plan gets sent to the township board for their approval, and then it comes to us for their viewing, I guess. And then it comes to us for public hearing and approval, final approval.
Yeah, my understanding is that the concept plan is really not voted on, but we have an opportunity to make suggestions and recommendations on it. And I guess it would be a way to get board's input to both the developer and the planning commission as to what they see, they like and don't like about the project, without the board actually voting on it. So it would be feedback. That's my understanding. I guess staff might be able to clarify that, but is the concept plan actually voted on, Mark?
I'll answer.
Yeah.
No, the concept plan is not voted on. The way it works right now is that they have an opportunity to go to the planning commission and the board for just general comments.
Right.
Before submitting, before doing full engineering and before submitting anything to staff.
And my thought is that right now it is an option. We would take the option part out, so it would be required.
So required concept plan gets submitted to the planning commission and the township board together, more or less at this roughly the same time. After that, they receive feedback from all the interested stakeholders, and it comes to us for public hearing and final approval.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. It certainly cuts the amount of time, probably in more than half in terms of actually getting it through the process. I don't know that the township board is going to be willing to cede that authority on this. I think likelier they would cut our portion out of the process before they give it up themselves. But I don't know. I mean, we can pitch them whatever we like. What does everyone else think about that?
I'm
Commissioner
a little unclear on the role of a concept plan. If it's not voted on then what is it? What's its role?
Sorry, Peter.
So I'll just share my
Commissioner
experience with it. I think generally the idea is to give the developer some sort of, you're on the right track. Now, what that means, and of course, now they're getting whatever, potentially 15 different opinions on whether or not they're on the right track and what track are they supposed to be on. So I don't know how, maybe answers or raises more questions than it asks sometimes, but I have seen a couple that have come. The Newton Park project was probably a pretty good example of the time when the concept plan, I thought, worked pretty well, because they came to the board and the planning commission with one idea, and didn't have to invest a lot of money in the one idea, and were able to find out rather quickly that that was not going to fly, and went a different route and ended up submitting a project that everybody seemed to pretty much like. So I think that's the general idea, is just to get some initial feedback before a big investment is made. Your mileage may vary, I guess, on how effective that is. And a lot of it is how much effort the applicant is willing to put in on the front end, and how far they're willing to go with a design scheme. If they just throw up like, well, we're looking at doing a project in this general area, here's what it might be, they'll get worse feedback than someone that kind of comes with a more detailed proposal.
Yeah, the project I keep thinking about is the one that came before us in Hazlet a few months ago, which was more than a few months ago now. And I think it was Pine Village. Is that what it's called? The senior home that came in front of us. And they did not, to my recollection, do a concept plan. They brought it in front of us. And so they spent a lot of time and money on building out their actual proposal. It got through us once the township board, where they said, hang on, let's rethink this. And now they spent a ton of time and money invested in preparing the application and having to go back and correct it. And perhaps a concept plan would have saved them some of that time and effort if they could have said, we're thinking about doing this. And if they had gotten feedback from the board and from the planning commission that, no, that's not the direction we're looking to go in this area, that would have saved them some hassle and definitely some expense in having to reconfigure it like that. That'd be my recollection of it. Commissioner Richards?
Yeah, I think that, point well taken in terms of the concept plan, and certainly if it's required, then we're going to want to put some additional language about what we want to see in the concept plan, so that it is in general, it has some meat to it, but yet I think the benefit from the developer standpoint is they're not going through engineering, surveying, lots of expense and time, and to find out that, well, there's some issues with that. And then I guess, basically, how many times have we, seen projects where we really wanted or situations where we were asked to approve something and we didn't know what was actually going to go in there. So here's a case where, I think we would see it up front before there's a lot of time and money invested, and comparatively speaking, and then we would be, as the township, giving some pretty good direction as to, what our thoughts were on what should be included, not included. We could also get into the proposed amenities if we wanted to. What are they proposing for amenities, or what would they be thinking about proposing for amenities as part of the concept plan, to kind of get through that hurdle without spending a lot of money and that sort of thing. So I think it's really, we could certainly beef up the concept plan language in the ordinance.
Other thoughts? Don't see many hands raised. Oh, Commissioner, everyone's hands up. Okay, Commissioner Primo, then Commissioner Shrewsbury, then Commissioner Menser. Sorry.
If you can hear me, check your chat.
Yep. Sorry, so I think just so the public can be aware of what was said, Commissioner Primo was looking for clarity on the amenities. Who do we want them to benefit? The general public versus facility users only. And Commissioner Bloomer mentioned that he thinks both. We might want to recognize the difference that there's a public amenity and internal amenity. I think that's an interesting distinction. I do just want to point out that as an Open Meetings Act thing, we probably should try to avoid the chat as a method of discussion. I know, I'm sorry. Yep, just to be careful, because that might cause us issues down the road. But yeah, I on that topic, I think there might be an interesting distinction to be had there between public and internal amenity, or like maybe resident amenity, something like that. Because I do think that they're going to want to provide resident amenities, of course, but we're going to want them to also provide some public ones, and that's sort of the whole point. Any other questions or thoughts on that part, Commissioner McConnell?
I would just underline that point that in my understanding of the meaning of an amenity is that it benefits somebody who's not paying to live or operate a business on the property. And maybe I'm mistaken in that. Maybe I'm naive. But my sense of an amenity is that the township is allowing a property owner to do something that they would not otherwise be allowed to do because it is providing a benefit to the community. And if the benefit is only to those people who are residents, tenants of the business, my understanding is that that is not the meaning of an amenity.
Thank you. I saw Commissioner Shrewsbury a minute ago, and then we'll come to Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I apologize, Peter, for not having sent any feedback. The amenities question I had last time is the same thing of, do we, I think there is a benefit to giving some amenities to the residents or the, the renters of the property. But I do think that having public amenities is one of the intents of this and sort of is the reason why we allow that flexibility in density or things like that to sort of trade it off with some other public goods. And then just a procedural, as I was looking at the ordinance and seeing some of the procedures that the township board has a responsibility for, if this was moved just to us, we'd need to look at those sections too, where like an extension of an approved MUPUD or things like that would have to then become a function of the planning commission, or we'd have to make sure, and I think that you would have picked that up, Peter, I'm sure, but just making sure that we look at all of the references and making sure that we don't miss something there.
Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
I just wanted to invite everybody to take a look at, if you hadn't hit already, it's not the sexiest part of the ordinance, but the amendments section for discussion next time. What in effect has happened is we left a pretty open door on amendments for projects. So, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I just wanted you to at least take a look at it. In terms of the criteria, there's quite a bit that can be done under a minor amendment that doesn't go back through the public bodies. But also the amendment process is pretty burdensome when you consider when you take a look at this, you'll see kind of the scope of what some of the amendments are. It's also, not only do we kind of leave a high end and a low end, because minor changes also kick in quite a process, so depending on what they are. So take a look at that amendment section, and I'll have some notes prepared as well for the next time we talk about this, because I think it's something I certainly didn't consider first couple times through the MUPUD ordinance. You don't necessarily expect that the project is going to come back, but this has become increasingly important language, as you'll see with projects in the future when they do have some changes.
Okay, Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, there's one section here and it's got a small F and this is talking about amenities, which is just so confusing when you get to, well, is it supposed to benefit the public or not? But because the way it's written, it says amenities shall be visible and or accessible. So it's visible or accessible to the public from a fully improved street and or a benefit to the general public. And that whole, I think that's got to go, because that is just about anything meets that criteria.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, that's just the ambiguity of the whole thing there, that in a nutshell, just, but anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Any other areas that you'd like to point out or address? Okay. So I think we've circled in on. Oh, sorry, Commissioner McConnell. Sorry, I missed you.
So we're now talking about amenities and amendments, and we're getting deep into the weeds here. But we also talked last time about what happens if an MUPD is approved and then we don't feel like the amenities met the requirements. So I just like to keep that on the table, that's all.
Yeah, I've got that written down in my notes here. I think I called it penalties, but you know, it's more than Peter coming and wagging a finger at them. It probably should be should be at least thought through what we want. So yeah, I think we've highlighted it down to the 4 areas that we sort of had talked about a little bit last time, which was the process and amenities, amendments now, and the penalties section. And it sounds like we've got a couple of broad strokes thoughts as to the process. I didn't hear any real disagreement about sort of the changes that Commissioner Richards was suggesting in terms of sort of eliminating one of the hops from the process. And we've got to work on, and I think this may be a work session to just sit down and hammer out some new language on the amenities. Because I think that, you know, we've put a lot of thoughts and suggestions out there, but I don't know that we've circled in on what exactly we're looking for. And then the amendments and penalties, those are sort of new areas that we're going to have to take a peek at. But I think if we section this off one at a time and sort of tackle perhaps the biggest one, maybe in a work session, that might be the next best option for us. So I think the amenities section seems like the big one. And I would ask, perhaps, are we able to find a time to get together outside of our normal working space in this meeting to get together and do a work session on this. In the past, we've done like a 6 o'clock prior to the meeting. I'd be comfortable with doing that, although it might cause some Zoom issues for our staff. But would we be willing to meet at 6 o'clock before our next meeting, for example? I see some thumbs up. I see some nodding heads. Commissioner Shrewsbury?
I was just wondering, looking at the tentative agenda for our next meeting, we have just the one unfinished business, which we were all pretty unanimous on. I'm wondering if instead of a separate session, we might just, I know we've tried this before, and I'm not sure if there's a difference procedurally from a work session to a regular meeting, but it might, I know I have meetings for work that typically run right up to 6 o'clock, and I've been late for other things that started at 6 because of that. So it might, you know, I love you all, but my preference would be not to have a separate meeting if we don't have to. And I'm thinking next agenda, it's pretty soon, so it should, you know, 2 weeks from now, it should be still fresh in our heads, give us a little bit of time to think. And so anyway, just a suggestion, if others think that we need the extra time, I will do my darndest to be there.
Okay. What do we think, everyone? Are we comfortable with just leaving this on the agenda then and tackling it after the unfinished business? Commissioner Cordell?
I was going to suggest that, given what the agenda looks like next time around.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good point about the agenda. To be honest with you, I hadn't even gotten past this week, so I appreciate that. Okay, well then let's just leave this on the agenda for next week. And our homework will be to draft up what we think are some good amenities and what, if any, beefier language we can think of. And we're going to try it again where we send them to Peter ahead of time. And maybe Peter, if you wouldn't mind sending out a reminder on, say, Monday of the week before the meeting.
Yep, I will do that.
Thanks. So that way we'll just have it top of inbox and we won't forget. I think that'd probably be helpful. So any last thoughts, or else we'll move on to getting through the rest of our agenda here. Commissioner Bloomer.
Just quickly, you know, I said there's a distinction in my mind between a public amenity and something that's internal to the residents of the project. I don't know that we're even concerned with those that are internal to the residents. That's a decision that they make when they decide whether or not to move in. What we really are concerned with is those amenities that impact the public or ought to impact the public.
Yeah.
Good point.
Here, here.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we should define it as such when we meet next time about it. Very good. All righty, we'll go ahead and move on then. Peter, we'll go to agenda item 9A, Township Board Update. What do you have for us?
Thank you. So the board met on September 1. I was not actually at the meeting, but I can still roll you through what happened. So on the agenda for action were several items that the Planning Commission considered and in recent meetings. So the rezoning on Potter Street that the Planning Commission initiated was approved for final adoption. The rezoning on Hagedorn Road at the Baptist Church was approved for final adoption. The special use permit for Andev was discussed. They did not vote, but it's back on the agenda for tomorrow night's Township Board meeting agenda with a resolution to approve that special use permit for the building greater than 25,000 square feet.
Okay. Any questions for Peter? All right, we'll move on to liaison reports. Anyone have any other meetings that they went to they'd like to report on? Quiet week for meetings. Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, September 2nd, the Environmental Commission approved a spending plan for the tree planting initiative of the township, and that project is moving forward.
Excellent. Okay, anyone else? All righty. We'll move on to agenda item 10, project updates. New applications, none. Site plans received, none. Site plans approved, none. Which brings us to agenda item 11, which is public remarks. Looks like we are light on the public in our Zoom meeting. Didn't want to stick around for our enthralling conversation of MUPUD ordinance updates. But if we have anyone who is listening at home and would like to call in with public comments, now would be the time, our final time for this meeting. You can call us at 517-349-1232, and our staff will put you through. Or if you want to join the Zoom meeting, now is your last opportunity to jump in and raise your hand. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes, and please give us your name and address at the beginning. Stephen, anyone on the lines?
We have no one calling in at this time, sir.
Man, this is a radio show with some low ratings, guys. I'm sorry about it. All righty, then we will move on to our final agenda item, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Primo, seconded by Commissioner McConnell. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good evening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Have a good night. And Peter, I did get my my light reading material here, so